The attack happened without warning. One moment Australian Navy diver Paul de Gelder was swimming through the dark, murky water of Sydney Harbour during a routine military training exercise. The next moment, something slammed into him with terrifying force. Before he could even react, powerful jaws clamped around his leg. A massive bull shark had attacked. Within seconds, the water around him exploded into chaos. But what makes this story extraordinary isn't just the attack. It's what Paul chose to do after surviving it. Routine morning in Sydney Harbour. In February of 2009, Paul de Gelder was serving as a clearance diver in the Royal Australian Navy. Clearance divers perform some of the most demanding underwater tasks in the military. Their jobs include locating underwater explosives, inspecting ships, clearing harbors of threats, and performing deep underwater operations. The work requires intense training and absolute focus. Mistakes underwater can be fatal. On that particular morning, Paul and his team were conducting a training exercise in Sydney Harbour, one of Australia's busiest waterways. Ships passed through daily. Ferries crossed constantly. The harbour was alive with movement. But beneath the surface lived something else. Sydney Harbour is also home to bull sharks. Bull sharks are one of the few shark species capable of living in both saltwater and fresh water. They frequently travel into rivers, estuaries, and harbors. Because they live close to human populations, they are considered one of the most dangerous sharks on Earth. Still, attacks are extremely rare. Thousands of people enter the water every year without ever seeing one. Paul had trained in these waters many times before. There was no reason to believe this day would be any different. Paul slipped into the harbor and began swimming toward a simulated target as part of the training exercise. Visibility was poor. Sydney Harbour water is often cloudy with sediment and boat traffic. Divers sometimes cannot see more than a few feet ahead. For a moment, everything was calm. Then suddenly, something enormous struck him. Paul later described the impact as feeling like being hit by a truck underwater. Before he could process what was happening, he felt crushing pressure around his right leg. The bull shark had clamped its jaws just below his knee. Sharks possess incredible bite force. Bull sharks, in particular, have some of the strongest jaws in the ocean. But the real danger isn't just the bite, it's what happens next. The shark's attack. The shark began thrashing violently. This motion is known as the death roll. Sharks use it to tear apart prey. The force twists flesh and bone with devastating power. In seconds, Paul's lower leg was torn away. The shark released him briefly, but the attack wasn't over. The shark turned and struck again. This time it grabbed Paul's right hand. Paul felt the bones in his wrist snap. The bull shark shook him violently again, then it tore his hand off. The water around him turned red. For a moment everything seemed surreal. Paul was floating in the harbor, severely injured, bleeding heavily, and yet, he was still conscious. Fighting panic. In moments like this, panic can be deadly. When humans panic, heart rate spikes, blood pressure rises, blood loss accelerates, but Paul had years of military training behind him, training that teaches divers to control fear and focus on survival. Instead of thrashing or screaming, Paul concentrated on staying conscious. His teammates on the support boat immediately realized something was terribly wrong. They saw the violent movement in the water. Then they saw the blood. They rushed to pull him from the harbor. When they lifted him onto the boat, the full extent of the injuries became clear. His hand was gone. His leg was gone. But incredibly, Paul was still awake. And somehow, he was still thinking clearly. He reportedly joked to his teammates,
"Someone grab my arm, it's floating away."
Even in that moment, humor helped him stay calm. And staying calm may have saved his life. The race to save him. Severe blood loss is the greatest danger after a shark attack. The human body can only survive a limited time without enough blood circulation. Paul's teammates reacted quickly. They applied tourniquets to stop the bleeding. They called emergency services. And they raced back toward shore. Every second mattered. Emergency crews rushed Paul to the hospital. Doctors later said that the speed of the rescue was critical. Without it, he likely would not have survived. Paul underwent hours of emergency surgery. Doctors worked to stabilize him and repair catastrophic injuries. They amputated the damaged parts of his leg and arm to prevent further complications. The surgeries were intense, but eventually the bleeding stopped. His condition stabilized. When Paul finally regained consciousness in the hospital, the reality of what had happened slowly became clear. His right hand was gone, his right leg below the knee was gone. For a Navy diver, this meant the end of his military career. Everything he had trained for was suddenly gone. Moments like that break many people, but Paul refused to let the attack define him. The long road back recovery from injuries like Paul's is incredibly difficult. He had to relearn how to walk using a prosthetic leg. Simple tasks became complicated. Opening doors, tying shoes, eating meals, everything required adjustment. Physical therapy was exhausting. But Paul approached recovery with determination. The same mindset that helped him survive the attack helped him rebuild his life. Step by step, he regained strength. Step by step, he adapted. Eventually, something remarkable happened. Facing the ocean. Again. For many shark attack survivors, returning to the water is unimaginable. But Paul didn't want fear to control his life. Instead, he chose understanding. He began studying sharks and learning about their behavior. What he discovered surprised him. Sharks are not mindless killers. They are apex predators playing an essential role in ocean ecosystems. Most attacks on humans are cases of mistaken identity. The shark bites once, realizes the mistake, and swims away. Unfortunately, even one bite can cause devastating injuries. A new mission. Paul eventually turned his experience into a new purpose. He became a speaker and advocate for shark conservation. He worked with marine scientists and conservation organizations. He appeared in documentaries and educational programs. And most importantly, he shared his story. But his message surprised people. Instead of telling people to fear sharks, the truth about shark attacks. Sharks have a terrifying reputation. Movies and media often portray them as relentless killers, but the numbers tell a very different story. Humans kill an estimated 100 million sharks every year, most through commercial fishing and shark fin harvesting. Sharks kill fewer than 10 people per year worldwide. The reality is simple: the psychology of survival. Surviving something like a shark attack requires more than luck. It requires mental strength, the ability to stay calm under extreme pressure, the determination to adapt after life-changing injuries. Paul demonstrated that strength in extraordinary ways. His humor during the rescue, his determination during recovery, and his decision to return to the ocean, all of it showed the mindset of a survivor. The lesson: the ocean is powerful, it is unpredictable, and sometimes it is dangerous. But the ocean is not cruel. It simply follows the laws of nature. Paul de Gelder could have spent his life hating the animal that nearly killed him. Instead, he chose understanding. And that decision transformed his life. Because sometimes survival isn't just about living through the worst moment. Sometimes survival is about what you choose to do after. And Paul chose respect. Respect for the ocean. Respect for sharks.